Your Majesties, courtiers and all, please welcome the Wunderkinder of the Mozart family, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Large, the Mozart nose. We lived in Salzburg. We grew up together in Salzburg. My father, Leopold Mozart, and my mother, Anna Maria. I was Mariana. We liked the name. Everyone called me Nanrel. Nanrel, can you say? Nanrel. And my brother, Wolfgang. Mother called him Wilfred. Yeah, say? Wilfred and Nanarel. She had so many children, my mother. 7 she had. But only Nannerl and Wolfrel lived. Papa, he worked for the orchestra. He played the violin. He wanted to be the Kapellmeister. First the Vice Kapellmeister, but the Kapellmeister was his goal, and so he taught me to play. I grew up in music, and I played the clavier. I played and I played and I played and I played, and Wolfgang lived and grew up on the floor underneath the clavier. With Father playing the violin, he grew up in music and took to it like water. Oh, how my brother could play. We played together. We played everything together. In the beginning, 4 hands on the clavier, and he was so fast, and he would make up harmonies and sing them all the time. I would sing and he would change the notes, and soon we would weave them together. And Father would take us to the orchestra, to the rehearsals for the orchestra, and Wolfie would crawl around and disturb everyone. And one time, when we were there, Wolfie went right up to Papa and he began to pull at his shirt. Papa, 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 he was pulling at his shirts. Wolfgang, no, Wolfgang. Papa, Papa, I want to play the violin. Wolfgang, you see, he wanted to be the Kapellmeister, and here now this little child of his, while his daughter Manuel sat quietly. You see? And so I grabbed him up into my lap, and he ran right back to, Papa, 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 I want to play the violin, I want to play the violin. And finally, the second violinist gave up and said, oh, let him play. And he picked up the violin. My little brother, 6 years old, and played an instrument he had never played before, so beautifully that the second violinist said, pull up a chair, and sat a chair for little Wolfie to play with Papa's orchestra. That's when Papa got his big idea. You know the tune? Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Variations in C. He would pull melodies out of the air. This, an old folk melody that now we all know. He didn't compose that when he was 6. He composed it much later, after the tour. Father said, I have wunderkind, wunderkinder, wonder children. I will take them and travel them to Vienna. First we will start in Vienna, to the Empress Maria Theresa. If you could pass the Empress Maria Theresa, oh, what a reputation we would have. And so the children, we were rushed into the carriage, and there was Sebastian. Sebastian was our nanny who went with us, and always we would change driver and change the horses, but Sebastian was with us the whole time. Sebastian made animal sounds as if they were real, he and Wolfie together. But it was the pigs that Wolfie liked so much. Yeah. Maybe Wolfie is here and so much. And in the carriage, you had to sit still. Dresses like this with great cloaks. There's no heaters in the carriage. Windows, but the weather is coming through. Here I had to sit, and there was Wolfie, and Wolfie was never still, waggling his feet, show them. He didn't know I was going to make him do this. That's the fun. Waggling and moving and up and down and up and down. Nowadays, I think they might give you some medicine, Wolfie. And Papa sent announcements ahead. The great Mozart children were coming. 6 years old and 11. He lied a little. We were 6 years old and 11 for 3 years. Oh, but Wolfie, he was small, you see. He was very small. And so we arrived, and the word went out, and we were asked to play for the Empress Maria Theresa and the Emperor Francis. And we were brought before them, and we played perfectly for them. And the emperor said, well, they are fine, talented children, but many people can play. Can they play without seeing the keys? And Papa, of course, went straight to his bag, and he pulled out the cloth that had been designed just so, and he placed the cloth over the keys, and Wolfie sat down with eyes closed and played the hide-and piece perfectly. It was the hide-and pieces in the Vivaldi that we were playing then. Absolutely perfectly he played, and Wolfie saw the delight in the Empress's eyes, and he said, where is Herr Wittgenstein? Wittgenstein, the court composer. Everyone held their breath. Where is Herr Wittgenstein? And then the Empress said, go fetch him. And so the court composer was fetched to hear Wolfie, and in he came, and Wolfie pat the seat right next to him, and the court composer, Herr Wittgenstein, could do nothing, but I'm going to sit down with you again, Chris, could do nothing but sit down. And so he went to play his own piece, and Wolfie turned to look at him and said, no, I will pay your piece. You will turn the pages. Can you imagine Papa's face? Can you imagine Mother's breathing in her tight corset? But he played well, and when he was done and Wittgenstein gave him his bow, Wolfie in his excitement got up to run to the Empress and tripped flat on the rug. And it was Marie Antoine, maybe your size, same age as Wolfie, got up and went over to Wolfie and helped him up, and loud so everyone could hear, he said, I will marry you someday. And then forgot what he was doing. And then after a moment recollected it to himself and ran right into the Empress Maria Theresa's arms. And she gave him a great hug. And that, I think, was the blessing on my little brother, who tripped and always called out loud the wrong things at the wrong time. A combination of such genius and such a always tripping little boy. But there at the very beginning, he had the blessing of the Empress. Here, play for us some more variations, Wolfie. From an empress can grant one reputation, but it cannot protect you from sickness. And so he got the scarlet fever while we were there, covered in red pox. We waited for the empress to call to ask us to play again. Father paced in near despair, his wonderkin here with the scarlet fever, and before the spots were gone, he took Wolfie out. Myself took us out so that we could promenade and let everyone know that he was better, so that he could go and play again for the empress. Playing was hard, and it left him a little bit weak. But the empress sent him a red velvet jacket with gold brocade, which set the tone for the rest of his life. And I received one of the princess's old dresses, exquisite and marvelous, but a size too small. But more than this, the empress granted us 100 ducats. Nearly 2 years of my father's salary at the orchestra. Yes, we would be a touring family. And home we went. all the preparations and the counting of the florins. And with those ducats, Father said, we shall have a carriage of our own. And we packed, planned, and letters went back and forth, and everything hidden from the Archbishop, so he would still be able to get the job of Vice Kapellmeister when we returned home. And then off we went, off onto our journeys, in all manner of weather. We went to Munich first. And when we arrived in Munich, Father complained about the inn. The room was so long. And there were always 2 beds. Mama and I, and Papa and Mozart. And so it was I who was in the bed with him when he first began the fever. So hot, my little Wolfie. And when we looked under the covers, his legs were swollen. His legs were swollen from the knee all the way on down. And the fever went up and up and up and up throughout his whole body. Doctors were sent for and came and left, and there was talk of bleeding. The rheumatic fever settled in his heart. And always, always from that point on, you would worry. And it was the rheumatic fever then, yet to come. But when he was strong enough, it was time to go out. And Father arranged us, always small little Wolfie, on the left of the taller sister. And we were in front, and Father and Mother would parade behind. And we were coming around. It was St. George's feast day. We were coming down, and right out from the window was Prince Frederick himself in his nightdress. He said, the Mozart family. Yes, said Father, we are here. And he said, I will talk to the Elector and we will have a concert. And so we waited to be called for, and we counted what florins were left, and Mother bought a new dress, and Father prepared himself for that concert. That Wolfie played. One song after another song, from violin back to the clavier, Haydn and Vivaldi, and more violin, and with his eyes closed, and with one finger not missing a note perfectly well. My brother. And the audience erupted in grand applause. They listened. Most times, they thought music was just a chance for conversation. At home, I said, Father, I wanted to play too. And he said, but the audience, my little Nanarelle, you cannot change a concert midstream when it is working well. I heard the Elector say that they want to hear the little Fraulein. We will play. And so we waited. A cousin in the court died and everyone dressed in black, and we went and spent more florins on black attire and waited. The days passed and we were never sent, and no payment came. Then my father said, Wolfie, I'm going to arrange dinner with the Elector. And at the right moment, watch for me, I will touch my nose like this. That will be your cue. And when I do that, you will say, we shall leave tomorrow. Just like that, Wolfie, can you do it? What? Wolfie, Wolfie, I said, listen. And I touch my nose. You will say to the Elector that we are leaving tomorrow. And so we sat at dinner. And I watched for Wolfie, and I watched my father for the signal, and at last my father touched his nose. And Wolfie stood up, just so. We will leave town tomorrow, but I don't want to. And the Elector said, we have not yet heard the Fraulein play. And so the next night, I played. And I played well. And Father kissed me that night and said, "Ah, my wunderkind, my Nanara." And on we went. On and on we went. Across the waters to England. Water and seagulls. And my little brother watched it all and began to play and to play and play and play. I remember Mama said, "What is that? What is that wolferal?" And Father said, "Get paper and write it down." You must write it down, Wolfie. Must write it down. And from the very beginning, Father took those little compositions and he sent them out to be printed so they would never, ever be lost. Write it down. And Wolfie would lay down there on the floor and he would kick his legs in the air while composing this wondrous music. And Father would say, "Up on the table," so that I had to move over. And see all those notes. We played for King George III and Queen Charlotte herself. And that night, with his violin, Wolfie turned and looked at me and said, "Vivaldi." And we did the sonata in G. It had never happened like this for me before. Do you know what it is to accompany? It is not so easy. You just have the left hand and a few notes to help guide you along the way. But it was Wolfie. It was my brother. And so he played and I accompanied and everything went away. My fingers flew. And when we were done, I had tears, and so did Wolfie. We loved to play together. We toured, and sometimes there were ducats, and sometimes there were florins, and sometimes the carriage wheel would break. And there we would be, just people, somewhere on a road. Sebastian and Father would go and they would run and they would get a wheel. And always Wolfie with his little fingers and making those notes. Carriage wheel, brought back, put on. Too much grumblings and exclamations from Father. Until at last Father would say, "Oh, it's just a wheel." 36 florins. Could be a foot. It could be fingers. And that is how we grew. To every crisis, every disaster, Father's temper, but always what to be grateful for. And I, for one, from that moment on, always heard that in my brother's music. No matter how dark or stormy or deep his emotions would go, there always comes my Father's voice that says, "Ah,
it could have been thick."
After the tour, we came home to Salzburg, and though Wolfie was still smallish, I was not. We were no longer Wunderkinder. And Father got his position as a Vice Kapellmeister. But how would we live? It was time for Wolfie to bring help, money into the family. And so Father said, Operas, you will write operas. And so Wolfie began to write the operas. This was not an immediate success. How much money was spent and how much time was spent as they struggled to try to write those operas and get those operas heard. And my Wolfie, my Wolfgang, composing and composing and composing. I'm tired. It comes so easy for you, Wolfie. You think it's so easy? Yes. I hear it. But sister, then I have to put it down. For all those instruments. Finally, it was determined that they would go together and leave my mother and I alone at home, because it was time what? Not for Nanuel to play. It was time for Nanuel to be married. So with my father and Wolfie off playing and writing letters back of this trophy and this gift and these ducats and this reputation and this opera going badly and that opera going badly, and I was just there reading the letters. Once more he came back to Salzburg. They gave him a position, but he couldn't bear it. He couldn't stand it. And so finally he said that he would go, and this time he took Mother, because Father would not let him take me.